Good evening. I'd like to stand and do the pledge, please. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks to any veterans and their families tonight. Well, we appreciate it. Welcome, everyone. First on the agenda, I spoke with the members on our street committee, street department or public works. And I see Andy is here, and he's the one that takes care of all the maintenance for us here in the city. So if there's any questions on this decision, feel free to ask. But we had talked about at the budget hearings of purchasing a tractor and a new tractor and a new bush hog, which the city needed. In reviewing that need, Andy had indicated that the tractors generally will sit 8 out of 10 days, sometimes more. We need them, but he feels that our Kubota will handle another 5 years maybe. Do you feel that's a true indication, Andy?
At least 2 to 5.
Okay. But the bush hog has been patched several times, and recently it's been patched again. So rather than purchase something that's going to sit, felt that 2 0 turns, 2 new ones, and a new bush hog for the Kubota to get rid of the stuff that's been way past its date, I guess. So that would be a savings to the city by doing that, and it would be more productive for the street department. That would give us 4 0 turns and be able to cut a whole lot more grass, a whole lot more faster. There's other things that they'd be able to accomplish then with that time saving. So I made the decision based on the charter of redirecting some of those funds and making the purchase for 2 0 turns and a new bush hog for the Kubota would be a better use of city funds. So if there's any questions or concerns.
So the bids are, have we picked a vendor?
Andy felt would give the Greatleys a try this time around. We've gotten good service out of the John Deere, but we got a really good price, and if we bought 2 of the Greatleys, they'd give us the fleet discount, which saved the city an additional $1,250, I believe.
1,400.
1,400. Okay. So the John Deere was a good choice, and we are familiar with that, but they gave us a little bit better deal to do a fleet purchase. So it's actually a little more savings to the city.
So basically, we're going to end up getting 2 mowers instead of a new tractor, and end up saving somewhere in the neighborhood of $38,000.
No, I think the budget is $30,500.
Oh, it was?
So the 2 0 turns is 20,000.
20,006, I think it is.
Something like that. And then the bush hog would be the actual bush hog, which is the middle bid. So that'd be a 2,780. So if you total those up, the remainder is a savings to the city. So
Saving $70,000.
yeah.
I like it.
So Next on the agenda is an update on well development. We spoke with EMI, Jordan's here, if there's any questions on that. They got the okay to do the topographical studies. There's a couple of sites that Jordan and I pointed out that the city has access to or owns. One of them would be at the water plant where you already have a filtration system. Another one would be up the Providence on a 3-acre patch. And another one was down at the Holiday Brothers, and that property has since been sold, but I spoke with the developer and his engineer, and they would be open to that as a possible site as well. And that being where you've got 3 major tributaries that come together to go to Bear Creek Reservoir. So you can't find water where there is water, we're in trouble. But that would go a long way to making the city a little more self-sufficient and not depending so much on Blinder or the county to help us with our water source. But I think that, do you remember what that study, how much that was for just getting started?
Not off the top of my head, but right now, EMI has used several different, hydrologists, and they were gonna get us a list of those recommendations.
Oh, yeah, I forgot that. Thanks for, the city likes to do at least 3 bids. EMI is gonna basically do the legwork for us, put it out there and get us at least 3 different companies that then we can make that decision from that point and choose which one, that we wanna go with. So they're more or less doing the due diligence for us. So hopefully sometime in the near future, we can move on that project. And we do have monies in the budget that if they find something this year, we may be able to pursue that, drilling at least one.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
The parcel we're talking about at Providence, is that 3 acres that the city currently owns?
Yeah.
What I'm looking at?
Yeah, it's up there right past, I think it's a little preschool or kindergarten or something, and I think we have 3 acres there as a possibility.
So there's a possibility that 2 of these parcels we already own, which should be a cost savings.
Right. And the engineer and the new owner for what used to be the Holiday property, the section that is up there in that top right-hand corner, little pocket that sticks out, that I guess goes into an embankment that's pretty steep, and they don't think that they'd be able to utilize that for building many properties, if any. So they would be open to talking to the city about that one as being a source. So,
Yeah, a question for Jordan. Do we have just a rough time frame of what we're looking at to get started with the typical amount? I know we're waiting on bids, but from that point forward, are we talking 3 months, 6 months, or a year?
As far as completion,
Correct, yeah.
well, it's not budgeted this year to do the complete well site.
Well, no, I'm sorry, not completion, the completion of the topo study.
I don't have their time frame, but I will ask them if we get that list of vendors, or for me and Mike, that was one of the questions, to see how fast they can move on.
All right, thank you.
at this time, Councilman Venable would like to discuss the Public Works building.
Yeah, we had voted, I believe it was in March council meeting, we voted to do a request for information to see what it would take and what it would cost to bring the Public Works building, basically up to code and use it. As it stands now, I think there's no question the Public Works building is pretty run down in my opinion, and needs quite a bit of work. But so far there haven't been any movement on that, and I know part of that's due to the coronavirus pandemic. But I would like to request that Sam release the RFI into the month, so we can start looking at what it's gonna cost. Planning to auction the house off right over here in 1921. And there will be some funds from that will go towards renovating the building. And, in order to make a decision, we need to know what it's going to cost with the buildings we currently have. So if we can get him to release the RFI maybe by the end of the month in September, hopefully we can have some responses, and then we'll have an idea of what it's going to cost. So we're going to start moving forward with selling the house. That's all I have on that.
All right, I'll meet with him tomorrow on that. In your packet, you have an update from the Statham Public Library. Had a chance to review that. If you have any questions, it's just basically, I think, their updated hours and things that are going on that they'll have scheduled for little projects.
I'd like to say something on that as well. I know we have a lot of volunteers with the library, and I appreciate all of them, but in this month's highlight, I just read it. There's a gentleman, Richard Ganan, that does a lot of work with children. And I would like to, even though he's not here tonight, I would like to say thank you, because I know the type of hard work he gives back to the community. And he actually was my course teacher during high school, had a big impact. So I'd like just to say publicly, I appreciate the work he's giving back to our community.
I have a question about the library. Is there any update on the progress of the grant and them moving into the old police department?
You tasked me with that, and I have not done that yet. I'll try to reach out this week.
Okay.
The only thing that's come across my desk has been 2 bills for the 10%. One was for an engineering, and the last one was a plan workup. So whatever the bill is that they receive, they take 10% and send us an invoice for it. And we have the line items in the budget, so when that money's gone and our 10% obligation has been fulfilled, that's all that comes out of the budget. So we've only had 2 things. One was for an engineering study, and one for plan workup, and I think that bill was around $150.
I think, yeah.
So I'm pretty sure that's what it was. So other than that, no, I don't have any other information on the library.
I'll try to reach out this week or early next week, see if I can get more information.
This time we have Lakes of Statham on the agenda. Not sure.
Yes, sir.
You're.
You want me to pass these out? Who all would like to get a copy? My name is Richard Cooper. I'm with Pacific Group. We're currently under contract to purchase Lakes of Statham. Mayor requested that we provide y'all a copy of some of the changes that we'd like to include while this is under. Mayor, who all did you want?
I know you didn't put another one for Tammy. She's not here tonight. I'll make sure she's here for it. I know Jerry would need,
Thank you.
Counselor, do you need one?
Yeah, probably it's hard. Sure. So again, my name's Richard Cooper.
Could you provide one to Jordan back there on the back porch, please?
What you have in front of you is a copy of the current submitted Lakes of Statham final plat. We've included as an interested party, we've included a few changes that we'd like to see on the plat as it's being approved, since the city and the council is still reviewing it. There's a handful of the items. I'll run through them real quick. Feel free to stop me at any of these points, but I'll just go through the items we're requesting. And then obviously, I'm here to answer any questions.
On that submitted plat, there's 6 lots that have been highlighted, red outline, gray shading in the inside. We're proposing to eliminate those lots as buildable lots. The configuration of them have their limitations, so as opposed to requesting variances associated with those lots, we would like to just submit those as open space, add to the acreage that's there. Those are lots 16, 17, 25, 62, 75, and 82. They are reflected on different pages, just given how the current plat's laid out.
Highlighted red.
Yes, sir, they're bordered in red and grayed out as well. With those lots being given back to open space, we'd like to count those towards the overall open space, but then eliminate the open space 3 that is currently shown, which is associated to the opposite side of Providence Drive, or Providence Road. Additionally to that, that would have removed General Note 26. If you look on the cover sheet, there's stripes and red indications in text, some of the changes to the language or to the text of the currently submitted final plat. So striking number 26, assuming the offset of the lots being turned to open space, can eliminate that number 3. It still keeps us above the required amount of open space for this piece of property. Additionally, we'd like to edit the General Note 28, which speaks to the amenity area. We'd request that the amenity area include a fire pit, parking, and a grass athletic field in lieu of the pool parking in the athletic facility. Also, the addition of General Note allowing that we be allowed to grade all lots associated with the development at one time upon receiving a land disturbance permit by the city. Also in those is General Note number 10. We just wanted to make sure the council is in agreement, which speaks to the slabs for the lots as opposed to basement indoor crawls. So I appreciate y'all letting us come in at the last minute with these. I've been communicating just the last few days with the mayor on this. We're looking at closing on the property in the next few weeks, but did want to see what we can do to have some of these items either included or changed over on the currently submitted plat prior to you guys approving.
Mr. Cooper, I have a couple comments and some questions for you and Jerry, I guess.
Yep.
You're proposing doing away with the 1.34 acres of open space, which is, from what I'm gathering, is contiguous open space, and then replacing that with parcels that aren't even touching each other as open space?
Correct. These would be open. These would be lots already associated in the on the parent parcel of the property. Open space number 3 is, while it's not contiguous with the parent parcel, obviously it's associated with property, but it is across the street from Providence.
And then on top of that, you want to do away with a pool as an amenity and put a fire pit.
Yes, that is correct. So the limitations in the common area for the amenity that's being proposed, it doesn't appear as it can even accommodate a junior Olympic pool. Our concern is, in our experience with the amenity packages, is when you reduce the sizes of them, it becomes an aggravation due to crowding, especially associated with community. So we would rather propose improvements that we feel everyone can utilize within that community, whether it be parents or kids. We're open to other concepts of things we could add, like tot parks or tot lots in that area. Just the pool was a concern of ours, just based on the limitation of the spacing for that common area.
Just as a matter of preference, I personally would like to see something for the subdivision other than the fire pit and the grass field.
Okay.
I would prefer to see something there that is usable other than, just an open field and a fire pit. I don't think that's, to bring a true amenity, in my opinion, to a subdivision, but that's just my personal opinion on that.
Okay.
But I did want to, not to cut it short, but on the same note, I want to check with Jerry. I thought it was my understanding that that 1.34 acres of open space, I didn't think we could get rid of that. I thought that was a requirement to that open space. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm Jerry White, city planner. To address the 1.34 acres across the street, and Jordan will remember this as well, we were struggling to get them to the minimum open space that was required for the conservation subdivision overlay. And they had not met it until they offered up that piece, and that piece brought them to the above the minimum that was required for the open space. And so it was added to meet the requirements, basically.
So as it stands now, the parcels that Mr. Cooper is proposing as open space, that would meet the requirements to do away with this 1.34 acres?
No.
I'm not sure that it would. I haven't done the calculations. I don't think that those 6 lots, do you know how many, what do they total up to?
So I did include as a red line on these set of drawings.
Right.
The provided open space as it stands is 8.721, the required is 8.17. Including those 6, but removing open space 3, still puts us above 8.256, which, according to this, we still exceed the required open space by swapping out, by moving from the open space 3 to these 6 open parcels.
Okay, but what can you, on ones that are not connected in any way, shape, or form, and I appreciate it, because I think this is a really dense setup. What is the big advantage and what can you actually do with that?
So our
This
intention
lot is empty, this lot is empty,
Sure.
and they're all approximately a third of an acre.
And as being small acres, our intention is to leave them undisturbed, with the exception of any grading that would need to be associated to the adjacentness of them, for either drainage or just the padding of the lot. But with that, it's some of the limited areas that could be left as wooded space. There's, at this time, there was no intention other than to create open space, a natural area, which in this case does spot throughout the neighborhood, but it's different spots throughout the neighborhood. If there is something y'all would like to, for us to expand on that, as far as options with it, I'm happy to send you something, as far as further intent.
So the open space 3, what would happen with the open space 3? Where does it go?
We have no intention.
What does it belong to then?
It's just not tied up as open space. I mean, we have no purpose, we have no use for it associated with Lake and Statham.
Okay, because, and I apologize, I just got this, noticed it before, and got it printed out and didn't have time to do it, but your conversations back and forth via email.
Yes.
And Jerry had noted on there that he would support and recommend, I guess, to the city as far as the conversion of those 6 lots into open space. The allowance of the land disturbance permit to equal the dwelling pad sites for grading and installing your mass grading prohibition. You know what I'm trying to say. And then approve the addition of note 29. And note 29 is all lot grading may be permitted at one time upon approval of a land disturbance permit. Is that something to get through City Hall, or is that something we have to engage another entity like DNR or whatever?
Well, a little bit of both. The city issues the land disturbance permit, so they make application to the city, and as a part of that, there's soil erosion plans, and the city is not a local issuing authority right now, so the plans get sent directly to the Environmental Protection Division, and they review and either, sometimes they don't even react, they give us 14 days and then you can get started.
Okay.
So it's a combination of both, but the city would issue the permit.
So the allowance for the slabs pretty much, isn't that always been there? on the other 24 attempts?
I think maybe Jordan could help me better with that, but my understanding is that the city had a requirement, was following the lead of Oconee County and maybe Barrow County at one point, and said, we don't want slab construction. And then, it's not in the current code, but I think it may have been, do you remember, Jordan, if that was in the conservation subdivision overlay?
No, I don't remember what you're talking about.
But in any event, that, in my opinion, that's not a big issue. I'm not sure what the public health, safety, and welfare reason why you would not allow slab construction. I think all it does is, I mean, I know how it's easier to get under the house, obviously, but, I don't know what purpose that it serves other than increasing the cost of the home.
I think that's one of the things that has remained a constant, because it's on this one,
Yeah.
and I know it was on other ones that I've looked at, so I think that note number 10 has really never changed in my knowledge, and I'm sure we can prove that. The things that you didn't really like or want to support was the removal of that open space across the street, because the development does not comply with the water supply, watershed buffer, and setback requirements of Bear Creek Reservoir watershed protection overlay. And that was something that you all had discussed, I guess, in your conversations and or emails. So you're saying that that would not be a good idea for the city?
Yes, Mayor, and if I can elaborate briefly on why that is, however it came to pass, the final plat, when it first was approved by the city, it said that it would comply with those watershed requirements, but it did not. It clearly did not. There were no, the only buffers that were there were the minimum state required buffers, and the watershed protection area requires 100-foot buffers from both sides of the stream and 150-foot impervious surface setback. And obviously, the property was developed without that, and it's not very easy for any of us to go back now and say, hey, we're sorry that you developed this wrong, but we're not going to let you build on it. We're not going to approve your plat. So it was helpful when they needed the open space to come in with that other track, and that what that does in my view is retaining that 1.34 or 1.4 acres. That gives you some watershed protection. It's guaranteed open space that tends to compensate for, you know, the development that's occurring close to the streams. So that's why I believe, even though they may exceed the open space, it should be retained.
But you wouldn't be able to ever build on that.
That's
It
right.
would always remain open.
It would be restricted to open space if it stays.
Now, the $50,000 question, who does the maintenance on that? Because obviously it's gonna grow.
It'll still be private property. It'll be a homeowners association in charge of Lakes and Statham, all common areas. And that property, as well as anything else in the common area in the subdivision, would be their responsibility.
So this is the 1.3 acres across the street.
Yeah, it's like a peninsula.
So the homeowners association is gonna be responsible for the maintenance of it?
I'm assuming, depending on property maintenance code requirements, the state, but yeah, any property responsibility is associated with for the homeowner association's responsibility.
Now, the other thing, yeah, go ahead.
Can we build on it? It's not buildable, right?
It's not buildable.
Main utilities and everything that's.
There is a sewer easement that runs through it, so there's a sewer line through it.
Okay.
But other than that, maintenance would consist of probably just vegetation control.
That's basically what it is. When you stand there, you're looking down a track, correct?
Yeah, we're going about sewer here. And
Yeah.
the rest of it's just gonna be woodland anyway.
Right.
Yeah, I have a few more questions.
Go ahead.
Mr. Cooper,
Yes.
would you be opposed I know you're trying to present a final plan here, but is there a reason that you would be opposed to keeping that 1.34 acres of open space versus the parcels that you picked? And then I have a follow-up question to that, but go ahead.
The parcels that we picked, as discussed previously, outside of the guide, they're so restrictive in nature due to the size. We would have to approach the city with each of those and say we need variances, whether it's front setback approaches or rear side, any of those. It's been explained to me or expressed to me that there's not a desire to allow any variances on those lots. Again, just given the restricted nature of what they are.
Yeah, these lots are tiny.
Yes, they are.
And then,
Specifically the configuration of it. So, that being said, the lots do us they're of no use. So as opposed to leaving them open as a lot, we would just as soon convert them to an open space. So that, going back to the homeowner association will be responsible for, if it's getting out of control, you're not hunting out owner in 10 years, that where it may or may not, trade off or sold off.
well, I have a follow-up question to that. Looking at the parcels that are presented here on page 3, lot 76 and 77, is that a flood area on those two lots? Because I see we have a 25-foot state buffer for a creek.
Yes, so there's a creek that flows through there. There's a 100-year floodplain associated with that area as well, which is creating a wetland pool currently. So the bold line is the extent of the body of water or the edge of rested edge. The 25-year or the 25-foot state buffer is in conjunction with what's been previously reported and what's been currently proposed.
Would it be safe to assume that would create problems for potential homeowners, especially if we're doing slab homes on those two lots?
So the elevation has been verified that the homes can be built, one, out of the concerns of floodplain, whether it be regulated or unregulated floodplain. Other than that, it's within the lot. It's an upstream feature of the pond that's currently out there, and it is, and by some accounts, the wetland area. So attractive to some, maybe not to others.
Would it require flood insurance on behalf of those homeowners? I can tell you,
It will be outside.
Fun.
It will be outside of floodplain. So, that being the case, it'll be at an elevation guaranteed above any regulated flood zone. So I don't feel they would be able to purchase floodplain, given that it's an unregulated area of flood.
Mayor,
I have another question.
Yes, sir.
I've walked this subdivision. I don't live too far from here.
Yes, sir.
I've walked this subdivision, and I've walked around the lake, and I have some questions and concerns. The sidewalk that goes around the lake is completely submerged. It's completely underwater and overgrown. And the dock is it's in pretty bad shape as well. What are your plans to remediate those issues?
So I believe any issues associated with the sidewalk have been corrected with some improvements to the out control structure in the dam. I'm not sure of that. I know on the last few visits we've had, the sidewalks have not been submerged. That was on the Providence side. It would be within the homeowners associations. I mean, we would make any necessary corrections or improvements at the time, but those would be cutting back vegetation. I don't know we had any expectations of the dam or the dock itself, just given that it's not been an item discussed associated with whether it be a punch list provided from staff or part of the conversations we've had. But, again, we're very much interested in the property. So any additional follow-up I need to give you guys as far as our intentions or what we could do to help improve those areas, more than happy to send some additional information.
On that note, Mayor, I recall having seen a list that you'd given at some point of 10 or 11 items of things that need to be done or have failed. Are those complete? Jordan, do you have any input on that?
The entire list is not being included.
Can you give us more details on what needs to be done, or what's remaining?
We've gotten 2 successful laterals verified?
Yes, and one was replaced.
Okay. What about water pressure? Because the last I knew there was
Still haven't
6
passed the
failures.
water, still haven't passed the pressure test, and any vacuum test.
So my name's Henry Bassey, I'm with Rotunda, we're the current property owner, and Pacific Group has it under contract. Obviously, we've been working with Jordan and with the council on getting these items completed. The only outstanding items are items 11 and 12, which is the pressure test and the chlorination. There has to be a leak in the water line that has to be found. We've been working on it. The Pacific Group has since picked up the gavel on that, and now they're working on finding it. That's the only reason 11 and 12 are still outstanding. 1 through 10 and item number 13 are all completed.
And maybe this is not the place to question this, and stop me if it isn't, but this has been going on for some time, and we were having some issues with bonds, as I understand it. Are we?
Yeah, there's, if I'm not mistaken, cash bonds have not been posted.
That's correct.
Yeah, so the cash bonds that are, the signed cash bonds agreement, the cash bonds have yet to be posted, yeah.
Right.
So they have not been posted?
They have not been posted.
So here's the plan, is that the Pacific Group is currently doing their due diligence, which is they presented to you what they would like to be done. Whether y'all agree to that or not, obviously that's up to you. They would then move forward with completing item number 11 and 12, which is they have to find the leak, and then they have to do the pressure test, and then the chlorination of the water line. Those two things have to be done, and then the Pacific Group has the ability to post the bonds to get a final plat.
So they have the ability, who actually posts the bonds in this? Is it Rotunda or is it?
No, the Pacific Group will buy the property and post the bonds themselves, and Rotunda will be taken out.
However, Mayor, in order to approve the final plat, the city insists on having the cash bond in place, and if the other group hasn't bought it yet, then that leaves Rotunda to have to put up the bonds, and then they could be swapped out later by the other group. But we don't approve the final plat without having those bonds in place.
That's correct. That's right.
Now, and that brings that Councilman already has brought up, and that's the editing item number 28 about, putting in a fire ring. And that was another one of the points that you didn't feel that you would be willing to support. And I kind of agree with Councilman Venable on that point too. If you're I'm gonna make a pretty safe guess here that you're talking approximately the $300,000 range for a house.
We work with national, regional, and local builders.
So you're not sure what price range? Because I would think if I were paying $300,000, I wouldn't want a little free area with a fire ring that I was gonna go like I was going camping. That's maybe just me, but I'm just looking for, I think council may agree with me that we'd like to see good products coming to Statham. And, we've got a very diverse population now, and it's getting more diverse by the day. And so you have someone coming in here that's willing to do that type of a purchase. We want good amenities, I think, that they can be proud of and happy with. So a fire ring may not cut it.
Just speaking to that, we've been very successful with out-pool amenities associated with open space as far as the just amenities as a blanket statement there. Again, we can, if it's worth the time for you guys, we're happy to draft up something, show what it could look like for this with or, well, specifically without a pool. And if that is room to expand what we do propose within that space, minus the pool. If the pool is part set, that's just where it needs to be. We can
I have a question for probably both of you. Was the sale part of the plan, or did Rotunda develop the land and then sell it, or are you guys not interested in it anymore?
Right.
Does it not appeal to you? I'm confused.
Okay, so I'm sorry, let's just kind of start over real quick. Here's the history of the deal. During the downturn, the original developer started the development and got the first plat back in 2005. Who that developer was, I don't know. And then they redid another plat in 2007. From there was no work performed. So all the work that was performed on the property, for the most part, has been since 2007. We bought it, meaning Rotunda came in and bought it as a depressed asset or an REO asset in 2013. Since 2013, we've been improving the property. We've put in a sewer line. We spent close to about $450,000 to get it to where it's ready to be sold to a developer and a builder who wants to take it to the next step. We have a close relationship with the Pacific Group. The Pacific Group is, and they've got close relationships with the national home builders from D.R. Horton to Pulte to Lennar, and that is the type of builder they're going to bring in. So the sale will be facilitated to the Pacific Group. The Pacific Group, by the time they post the bonds, they will own the property, period. So we will be out. So they're simply doing their due diligence right now, and at such point, they're looking to close in a couple of weeks.
Well, from my standpoint, the issues that I have are the ones I discussed. Obviously, we need the list taken care of that we talked about. The bonds are an issue.
Absolutely.
The green space, if it's an issue for Jared as our contractor, it's an issue for me. And certainly the open area, the amenity area, that's also an issue for me as well. So, what you brought to me tonight, just for me, in my opinion, is not acceptable as a final plan. I don't know how everybody else feels, but that's my policy.
Can I have a question?
Yes, ma'am.
I agree with Jerry. And another thing, I know we're not a collection agency or anything, but we've had complaints that people that's gone out there and got the property in order has not been paid. Now, if you're not doing that, how do we know that once you sell it and we start building, if we have a complaint, who are we going to? How do we know that you're going to be right back and take care of it? And we've had that happen here a lot. People come in and do shoddy work and then you don't get them back to.
Well, I can't speak to, I don't know of any vendor that has not been paid, number one, and then number two, and if that's the case, then we can certainly talk offline. But once the sale is facilitated to the Pacific Group are hiring their own vendors, their own consultants to develop, and ultimately contract with a builder to build the homes. So that issue will pretty much be taken off the table.
With that too, bonds will be posted. Any outstanding items associated with property.
Well, like I said, I just, I've had a complaint and since I live here, I gotta vote on it. I don't want people coming back later.
Right.
I want everything right before we step into it, and,
For that purpose, or to that point, with completion of the punch list, that's currently out there now, it brings every item into compliance as far as, by regulations, or the city's, regulations. At that point, we post the bonds against those improvements, and those will stay in place for a deemed amount of time. Anything that occurs during that maintenance time frame is the responsibility of the property owner, which would be Pacific. Our intention would be to hold ownership until all vested rights or the lots are built out. That way, we're protecting ourselves from such as a builder who doesn't perform or complete.
Mr. Keeper,
Mayor, can I ask something?
yes.
Cheryl Venable, 2021 Broad Street. what I'm hearing you saying is the 7 lots that you're asking now to become green space or whatever, they're unbuildable. And you also made a statement that, you know, against the other lots next to them, this could possibly be, you know, the runoff. Well, if they're unbuildable, I would think that you would maybe make your other lots less homes and divide those unbuildable lots into the adjoining lot. Because when the statement is said, you know, well, they're unbuildable, they have some concerns the way the land's running, but that's telling me is the person next to those lots are gonna have runoff issues. That is one of my concerns, is like, well, we have this wonderful green space here, it's continuous space. But now we're gonna give you 7 cut up pieces that now you as a homeowner association have to maintain these 7 places. And not that you can really join or have fun in one big area. Well, you can go over here, you can go over here, you can go over here. So to me, it would be more sense, less lots, divide the unbuildable lots into those other lots, charge more for those bigger lots. My other thing is going to be, apparently this property has been dormant for a while, and years. So what are we looking at? Are we at current on our utilities, whether it be piping for the water, electric? I just heard sidewalks are like not so good, the dam may not be good. These are all things that our citizens would want to make sure they have a sustainable and safe environment when they come in. If you're asking $300,000 for some of these homes, which sounds like they're going to be flat, that's a lot of money to have an issue. And when you say you have a 100-year flood or wetland, part of these properties are going to be wetlands, well, I would ask, when's the last time this occurrence happened? Because are you 10 years out, whatever years out? And when you say wetland, that means someone's going to have a little mushy water in the back of their yard. The other thing I'm concerned about is grandfather status. It seems like we've gone through several builders, but we're still holding a grandfather status. And I understand grandfather status. But I'm wondering, when we are changing and we are selling property over to a new person, why are we maintaining grandfather status? That's a concern. You might have one group that started it and holding on to it to sell it, but you're still, where's the years? How many years has this been going on? How many years is grandfather status actually really in Georgia allotted? The other concern I'm going to have is the amenities that was brought up. I don't know what the HOA is going to be set at, but, you know, even if it's at a minimum of $100 and you have 76 lots, that's almost $8,000 a year you're going to collect. What are these people getting for that money? A piece of green grass that, number one, they're going to take care of, a little fire pit, woo-hoo, maybe a little toddler park that's away. Once again, you divided it up. It's going to be all over the neighborhood. I know it was already mentioned about issues with other builders in this community. You know, Statham is going to be growing. Anyone can see what's happening down 316. Folks, it's a comment. We want quality because today, $300,000 for a house is a lot of money. I don't care who you are. That's a lot of money. And then you're on, some of them, you know, a quarter acre maybe. That's a lot of money. You are bumping right up into your neighbors. So I think as a community overall, it is our due diligence to make sure that whatever is presented to these citizens, number one, is going to be followed through. The subdivision is going to be completed, roads, lights, sidewalks. They're going to have safe community, and it's going to be finished. And whatever they're being told, we already changed it, we're going to have a pool, now we don't have a pool. Well, I'm sorry, a pool is a pool. Whether you think the community doesn't need it, but that was your first objective to give it, you're saving money by not doing it. just question, you know, the stability, the honest, and providing for these citizens is essential, and that's what I want to hear. You know, bond issue, I get the bond issue, but it is a forum where a government can go back on a builder for its citizens or for its own government to protect themselves. The clarity of what the council is saying, that needs to be pertinent, number one. That money has to be done. Whether you do it or you do it. It is pertinent. It is the security of cost, whether it be to the homeowners or the government. How many times have we changed hands on the subdivision? What is going on underground? Is it too old to maintain? This is not, to me, this is not acceptable, offering this up tonight for green space. Or, you know, they're gonna take this one spot and now you got a whole bunch of this. This is not acceptable. Look and see what you can actually really do. If those are unbuildable lots, basically you're saving money because you can't build on them. Then divvy them up, less homes, a little bit more of those lots that have more land. I mean, that's how many subdivisions do it. I know that because I was planning and zoning clerk for 17 years for a county. I sat through many developers coming in. I've sat through developers who didn't finish, especially when everything went haywire in '08. But we're not in '08. And this is a different government, and I think there's a higher quality of expectations for its citizens today.
Thank you. Any other questions or concerns at this time?
Statement from the Pacific or Rotunda?
The only comment I'll have is that obviously we had already gone through this pool issue and doing a pool, not doing a pool. Being the Pacific group, they asked us, could we bring it to the council? And I said, yes, you can bring it to the council. Just so you know, we have already decided on it. So it's not a pivotal issue that this has to be done to make the deal work. And so I just want you guys to know we are still on the same, we are absolutely on the same page. We're not trying to change any kind of agreement. We're trying to get the deal closed, period, with exactly what we've already agreed upon. That's it.
Jerry, any other information?
Yeah, I have a few more remarks, Mayor, thank you. Regarding what Mrs. Venable said, I actually agree with that. The lots that they're offering up are unbuildable, and I've explained that because of the way this subdivision is laid out, that I would not recommend approval of any variances, and that they got that message. And I think that it's because it really casts into doubt the utility of those scattered parcels, to the point where I would recommend, as she did, that they just, it doesn't help much to offer those 6 lots up for common open space. Make the lots larger, as she said. I think that's a very fine recommendation. And then finally, on the rec area, the reason, it was a code requirement to do the pool, and we've insisted, and as Rotunda knows, every time that request has come up, we've had 18 months of discussion about this and other issues on it, and each time we have said, no, that's a requirement, we insist that you have it. And so that's one of the reasons why that I think we should still insist. And the other is that these standards, we have really substandard right-of-ways and high density in here, and it's going to, in my opinion, I've told everybody, I'm very frank about it, that this is going to be somewhat of a problem subdivision when it develops. And in exchange for those small right-of-ways and small lots, we have a recreation requirement, and to give up on that in exchange for what they're getting by way of density, small lots and stuff, doesn't make a lot of good public policy sense.
Well, is it your opinion, and it is my opinion, that six $300,000 homes on 1 acre it's just too tight?
Well, first of all, I agree with Jerry. So, I mean, it was simply Pacific Group wanted to bring it to the council at the work session. get your opinion on it. That opinion is very clear, crystal, and we're not trying to do that anymore. So the open space number 3 will maintain and pertain. So we're in agreement.
What would be your, I mean, what would Pacific's view on the tiny lot size be? Would they be willing to go back to the drawing board, redraw the lots, open up the space a little bit more, maybe give up more lots?
Well, the lots are already fully developed, so.
Utilities install everything.
All the utilities are already
We
recorded.
we haven't tapped anything yet, so.
Yeah, but all the sewer laterals, everything is in, that's where the value of the subdivision is. So basically, this property had already been platted in 2007, so, I mean, I understand where you're going, I do. And by the way, the $300,000 range, I don't know where that came from, I've never heard 300,000. At the end of the day, we don't really know where the builder is gonna go, but I will tell you this, the Pacific Group has done unbelievable developments. They've been around for probably close to 30 years. And, you know, so you're getting a quality developer who's got a long, term, presence in Metro Atlanta. And all you have to do, you don't have to go very far away to find out about the reputation of the Pacific Group. So anyway, that being said, the Pacific Group can provide you with any multiple examples of neighborhoods that they've developed, that they're currently developing. So, anyway, maybe that would be helpful.
Jordan, you have
Mr. Massey pointed out that this final plat was, 2007.
Yep.
That showed just like being a gated community. So,
2007?
yes, y'all want that to go back to be a gated community, that change?
Yeah, we don't.
Well, therefore, those 7 plat doesn't count.
Right, no, absolutely, I was just saying.
I just wanted to be sure it's all on the same page.
We're absolutely agree.
Okay.
Yep,
What they was more associated with the group that happened.
that's all I was trying to say. Yeah, we agree.
Ultimately, from Pacific standpoint, yes, as we approach this potential re-signing of plat, we looked at it from our standpoint of what would be advantageous, what would make sense. Currently, there's water taps and sewer taps all included for each of those lots. I would like to say, as far as an unbuildable stance, I'm simply referring to the sizing makeup of the lots. That it's not associated with runoff issues, drainage issues, hazardous conditions of said property. It is only associated with configurations of the lots as they currently stand.
I've been in one of these subdivisions before, and I've been to a party at my niece's house before, and literally there is nowhere to park. If you have an event at your home and you have more than one car, you're in the neighbor's driveway, you're in the neighbor's driveway. These cul-de-sacs, you can't even turn around in. So the issue with the lot size, it's I think what Mr. White is alluding to is that the problems are not drainage, the problems are not taps, the problems are developers coming in and trying to squeeze every penny out of every square inch of land at the expense of our community. And our community is our utmost concern. As Ms. Venable pointed out, what you surrendered here, these lots that you surrendered probably benefit the development. I know you're trying to wring it out and get as much money and as many lots as you
Well,
possibly
that day is
can.
come and gone, by the way.
Sure.
We've been trying to do this since 2013.
I know,
So at this point, we're trying to
you.
get something that is valuable, that is a good, solid community that the city can be proud of, that doesn't look like the eyesore it is now.
And that's certainly what we want as well, and I think that's the point that Councilmember McCormick's making, is that, and not to be a dead horse, but what's presented tonight with these lots,
We understand, yeah.
it's not what we're looking for, as far as.
To that, we took the currently submitted plat, what's currently before you now, and just made notes of what was there. So
Right.
configurations and all sides. I mean, those are currently what's before the city council, as a condition of the development itself.
So let me ask you this.
Yes.
Basically saying that based on what you presented, you probably would just back to the other. Would you still eliminate those 6 lots? Or would you then go back to what they had presented and ask for variances on lots that really aren't buildable?
I can obviously follow up with you after this meeting on that. It is, again, I would say there's no item associated with what we presented that is a deal breaker for us.
Can you follow up with all of us?
Yes, no, absolutely.
Absolutely. I would appreciate, by the way, shot that email over with all these points to everybody. And I'd be glad to put it in your mailbox as well. Sometimes it's easier to read it yourself than listen to somebody read it. I appreciate it.
And all I can say is we're happy, Richard and I are happy to meet with the council, either after this or sometime next week between now and the hearing, to make sure all your questions, everything is satisfied, and we're all on the same page.
Counselor, do you have anything to add at this point?
Not at this point, Mayor, no.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to discussion item, the tree ordinance. Everyone has a copy of that. Councilman, would you like to expound on anything on that?
I would, I had requested to have a tree ordinance put on the agenda. Shortly afterwards, I got a revised tree ordinance from Mr. Campbell that the tree committee has not had a chance to look at yet. The tree committee's next meeting is scheduled for, I think, August 25th. I believe that's a Thursday, off the top of my head. So I would like to postpone the discussion of the tree ordinance until the September work session.
Get that date. So that would be, I believe that would be September 4th. So you would like to postpone the tree ordinance until September 4th for discussion?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And Broad Street repairs, I put in everyone's packet. There are 3 bids that we have thus far, and I'm working on 2 more. I'm hoping we have those maybe in a week. As soon as I do, I can make sure that all council members have those, and then we can make a decision on that. One of them, as you can see, is 81 something 191, some 875, and one for 178.90.
Is there, Mayor, do we know the reason why there's such a big price difference amongst the 3?
I do not know. I know the 178.900 had a lot of detail, a lot of breakdown on it. The other 2 were not quite as detailed. The one thing they all had in common, they all agreed to concrete pipe with, help me out, Jordan.
Rebar.
On each end, they're like wings,
Head walls.
head walls.
Yeah.
So all 3, it would be a concrete pipe. What is in there right now is, I think you call it corrugated steel. It's rotting out. It's being undermined when we have heavy waters that run down Mulberry, between Mulberry and the Congrove that's down there. And there's a lot of water flow when there's the overflow from the storm drains. So it's undermining that pipe, which is adding to the sink that's occurring right now. There's a pretty good divot, and I wholly believe that it's getting worse by the week. At one point, it was when you were coming towards town, It's now to the point that if you hit it at the right speed, I saw the other day, it looked like somebody took out their oil pan, went airborne. So, but it's something that the city's gonna have to, move forward on, sooner than possible. Monies have been budgeted, but, the bids have been slow in coming. There's a gentleman that did put in a bid, and I'm gonna say right up front, full disclosure, he is related to one of my employees. If you'd like to explain what the project would entail, but I'll have to be honest with you, that there's no way it should sway any member of the council, but it would help us all understand, since we're not construction people, and we have no idea as far as I didn't even know what a head wall was.
Mr. Campbell, is that created a conflict for us as a council?
It potentially, but I would have to double check the purchasing policy and the ethics policy. So I can't offer an opinion on that tonight. Good news is I don't have to because it's a work session, but it's something that does need to be investigated.
Can it be explained, or do we have to pass on that?
I think it's something that can be explained, although the reality is that when it comes to conflict of interest, there's not a blanket prohibition that prevents contractors that have a relationship to a city employee are banned from bidding or receiving public works contracts. Really, those rules apply more to the people sitting up there to make sure that there's no relationships up here. And if there is a relationship, then you have to recuse. So it's really more of a concern for y'all than it is for either the bidder or the employee. But again, just to be safe, I'd like to double check that against the purchasing policy and the ethics policy.
As far as
Whether or not it can be, whether it's disqualified, whether it can be explained and still be a valid bid.
okay, so we should.
I can look into that and offer an opinion one day. Yeah, I can absolutely answer questions about the bid, the construction basis, but whether or not we can accept it, that's something we have to wait on.
Would you care to at least explain to the council what this type of a job would entail? And obviously, it's going to be a concrete pipe in there under the road. It's going to be a lot safer and more long-term than a metal pipe. I don't know when that metal pipe was put in there, but over the years, it's starting to corrode, it's being undermined, and as I understand, talking to Jordan, it's mainly because we don't have head walls in there. It's been a pipe thrown in there with some boulders, and water's going past that.
The material, the metal, sometimes has a reaction to the water flowing to it. Something that can be a chemical in the water, or a chemical or something in the soil that could cause it to deteriorate faster.
Okay.
But that pipe has been in whatever time it has. The problem is it has deteriorated on the bottom. Since that's happened, it's lost its strength, its integrity, and the weight on top of it, with that being on the bottom, is continuing to collapse and push it down. And as you stated earlier, heavy rains take out more dirt that's supporting and continues to sink. It's lost its strength, its integrity. So it would require closing the road, removing that pipe, replacing it with new pipe, and repairing the road. That's making it simple.
All right.
Any questions I'll try to address.
And, yes,
I have a question. On the road coming off of Broad to Mulberry, on that stop sign, is there a pipe underneath the road right there? Because that right there is also bubbling up, so I don't know if there's a pipe underneath there, Mulberry or something.
This one?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, there is.
Okay, so what I have noticed is where if I'm looking at Mulberry, and here's where it's running off, actually, it's running off and running over the road down. This is start to cave in, and just because the cars take sharp corners, it's the asphalt's going on. But, so if our pipe was laid this way, is that going to also erode going to on Broad side down to where you're putting the new pipe?
Those are two separate locations. I know it's real close together,
Yeah,
but they're two separate locations. The water flow is different, in a sense, they really don't affect each other.
okay.
They're two separate.
But, now, here's Mulberry right here, but on this side where, is also runoff from Broad going down, that's washing out, that's meeting the water coming from the culvert. And what I'm trying to get at is, do we have multiple problems that maybe we can address at one time? Would be my concern, the way that road comes so straight and then it just drops off, there's a continuous flow of runoff and runoff across the road that is deteriorating. Like you say, the wall of the embankment is pretty much really steep and pretty much you can see the tree roots coming. So that, and I know we had a lot of rain last year too. I know that adds to the problem, but you can actually see where at the stop sign on Mulberry how it is deteriorating, whether it be two issues. I think it's going to be a continuous issue if we don't look at the flow of the water coming off of Mulberry into that area too, what you're initially looking at to repair. And then for the council, my question would be, did we go out and advertise for bids, or did we make phone calls? To me, it's very pertinent that the government gives everyone a chance. And what were the requirements? Are we just taking bids? Are we having an engineer, an engineer firm with those kind of degrees to look at these roads? This is kind of a big issue. Versus just throw a pipe there. And I know, Mr. Daniel, you are an engineer. Because there's a big difference between the bids going here, and that would be my concern. Are we looking at, I know it's hard to compare apples to apples on something like this, because we're asking them for their expertise to give us. So I would like to make sure that, we, on some of these projects, we have a certain quality of, I think this particular project does need an engineer looking at it just because of, it's a big culvert, it's a big wash area, and it's a very well-traveled road as well. But I also have concerns if we're just making phone calls to vendors versus advertising it for all, whether it be two places. It should be on our web, and it should be in our legal. And I would hope that they were all sealed bids. And sometimes sealed bids, you can do a pre-opening if you want to see them before you actually bring it to a meeting. That way you can look it over. I highly recommend that one because it allows people, here's your cutoff date, we're going to open, review, and then you're going to present. I just want to make sure as far as vendors are looking at the city through transparency, that we're giving everyone an opportunity versus just phone calls, that we are advertising our bidding process.
I think I may be mistaken, but I think our financial policy, this dollar amount does require sealed bids, if I'm not mistaken. So
I think you're right, and that's what I'm trying to pull up right now is the financial policy for the city. It's usually stated in terms of dollar amounts, if project is over a certain monetary threshold, and sealed bids is required. But I'm trying to pull that up right now so that I can.
And then it'd be the due process. When the sealed bids, you normally have a time and a cutoff date. They are sealed, they are held until that time. And then whether you decide to do an early opening, and then you can review, and then you award it at a meeting, but they cannot be pre-open before that time has expired. I just want to make sure we're really transparent with this process we're going through with our procurement, and just like I said before, with who we're bringing in to give our citizens homes. I think it's pertinent on both levels.
Well, my biggest concern is, well, I have a couple of questions. I don't know much about roads and drainage. You know, I've talked to much to you about this before. Not my area of expertise, but looking at the quotes, there's a pretty significant difference in the dollar amounts, and I don't fully understand why we have such a large difference in the dollar amounts. And part of that is my own ignorance of not knowing enough about roads and drainage to ask the right questions on that. But, you know, from what I'm reading here, there doesn't look like a whole lot of difference in what's being provided as far as labor and materials, but there is a pretty significant difference in the dollar amount. So I don't know, is there something I'm missing, I guess, is part of my problem with it. But over and above that, and I guess this would be a question to you, Mr. Campbell, is do most local governments require bonding and insurance for something of this nature? Because we do it for tree surgeons, so I would assume we would require that as part of our requirements for doing something of this nature.
So let me answer that question generally. And first of all, I'm unable to pull up the financial policy for some reason. It's not pulling up on my computer right now. You emailed it to me on an unrelated issue previously, but many, I'll go so far as to say most local governments, when they're dealing with a project of this size, the timeline is as follows. An engineer, or there's an identified need. Something is happening here, the road is failing, the pipe's failing, whatever it may be. Then there's the city will retain the services of an engineer to analyze the situation and make a determination on exactly what has to be done. And part of that is to develop a scope of work. And in that scope of work, they provide all of the detail, how far you got to go down, materials that have to be used, soil testing, compaction, paving standards, all of that. And then using that scope of work, it is then advertised and then bids are received for for larger projects. And as you go down to smaller projects, obviously you can be a little bit more flexible with those smaller projects. So to answer your question about what governments generally do, that's it. And the reason why I think that's important in this case, and again, I don't know, I haven't seen these prior to coming here tonight, and I joke, and I know that engineers and professionals say that sounds like a lawyer, but not all concrete pipes are built the same. Not all paving is done the same. There's different degrees of materials that are being used. And oftentimes, when you have larger construction bids and you're comparing, you aren't necessarily comparing apples to apples. They say so-and-so paving at this price, and then somebody else will say so-and-so paving at this price, and those two prices may be radically different. Well, the reason why is because they might be using different types of paving materials, different PSI levels of paving, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why the engineer, usually in their scope of work, comes up with a specific material list and construction details for several reasons. One, because for the most part, council members aren't educated in construction materials like that. Second of all, to make sure that when the bids are received, they are a true apples-to-apples bid. Does that make sense? And as soon as I can get the financial policy pulled up, it might be tomorrow, I can look at that and decide whether or not this is a project that requires sealed bids before approval.
I have any other questions? About
Well, the only other thing, just because we're on YouTube, the smoke test will be starting next Tuesday, I believe.
August the 17th, Monday.
Okay. I believe they're gonna try and do about a half a day on Monday, because the gentleman coming in from Savannah,
That's the South Georgia story.
yeah. So, but, you know, just want to remind the public that this has been on our webpage, on our Facebook, and also in our newsletter. So just a reminder for everyone. I think that's all I have. Yes.
I just want, but this is about our police department. Some of the citizens in this area want to do something special for our police department, because I think we have a really good one right now. And I was told that maybe our chief might be out of town for a few weeks, so we're, maybe, this is gonna be on Saturday, having an appreciation lunch for our officers. And if they want to bring their family, to the police station, that would be fun too, and just have a lunch, maybe on the 29th of August, if that's okay with you. And
Is that
maybe-
Saturday?
Yeah, on a
Okay,
Saturday,
good.
because most of us work, and we figured we'd have it on a Saturday, and the mayor and his wife would be invited to. And, we would just, provide lunch for the officers, that day. Does that sound okay?
It's always nice to hear happy citizens.
I routinely drop.
So, yes, they will be back. He is going for, more, training.
Yeah.
And, but he will be back, so you're talking the 29th and.
Right. I think he said, I was told that he'd be back by that time. I routinely just drop, goodies by the, over there for him, but I thought a luncheon would be much nicer for everybody over there.
Do you need anything from the council or?
No, just volunteers for, if anybody wants to make a dish or something, just, I've got it on the computer page, if anybody, I have lots of volunteers already, so that they, as soon as I could give them a date, we can, put together a menu or something to, and get everybody involved in bring dishes.
Well, I'm sure they'll appreciate it. So, thank you.
And something else that, while I'm at it, it was announced today that, virtual learning is gonna be in Barrow County because of all the positive testing. And I don't know, there's a lot of people that it's gonna affect. It's like, not, that work, like, are single parents and they have small children. And, I'm wondering if maybe our library or our local people, retired teachers or something, we might be able to get involved and sort of help out some of these people that don't have daycare or whatever, that might be able to, have something available to those who can't, that need some help. Like, if we might have something available for some of these people that's going on. I mean, I've offered help in the math, I've tutored in math and science for years because I was a science major at UGA. But, I know there's a lot of retired people in the area that taught school that might be willing to donate some time to help some of the younger kids. I think, 5th or 6th grade and lower is all we really need, to help some of these kids. But otherwise, they're going to be left at home alone while their parents, because some of these jobs aren't available to do at home, and they're going to have to be working. So, when school starts, it's going to be hard to, because they can't pay them to work. It was brought to my attention by someone tonight. I said I would bring it up for the segment. And I don't mean everybody in the country to come here, but just local people, that might need some help. We might present this to the library, because there's computers there, and it has to be done on a computer. But, anyway.
Thank you. Have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second? I'm sorry. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you all. Apologize, it took a while, but we got it done.